If you want to help Myth Vision Podcast grow, you can join our Patreon. There are different tiers, as well as help out with PayPal. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment.
Dr. Bob, wanted to ask you about authors like Richard Bauckham in Jesus and the Eyewitnesses, I believe is the title of the book, states that we can glean the basis of eyewitness testimony in the Gospels from a concept known as inclusio. So, as I understand it, where the Gospel authors make mention of various other characters, disciples and whatnot, it's a literary term referred to as inclusio, which I suppose is some kind of reference to an eyewitness reportage by another disciple. Or have you heard of that, and can you describe what that is and whether or not it's significant?
I know the word inclusio in terms of a kind of a bracketing technique, like when near the beginning of the Gospel of Matthew, he says that he quotes Isaiah 7:14 and says, "You'll call his name Emmanuel," which means God with us. And then at the end of the book, in the Great Commission, he says, "And I will be with you always, even to the end of the age," so that it ends on the same note it began on. And there are other examples of that, which is just, as far as I can tell, a stylistic flourish. But I wonder if he's using inclusio as this another way of saying this. What do they call it? Incidental correspondences or something that
almost like internal arguments that might build their case, like why are there enemies in the book of Jesus if there weren't really enemies, or to build like an apologetic support within the text itself as inclusio, is maybe like that, if that makes sense.
Well, what are they including? Like what I have heard is that let's see, in one gospel at the feeding of the crowd, he asks Philip to see how much food they have on hand, etc. And in another one, it says they're in Bethany for that event. And what do you know? Philip was supposed to be from Bethany. And they'll say, well, there you go. Those things, nobody's trying to make a point there. But if you look close, you can see that they share some common, in itself, unimportant information about Philip. So what's it doing there? And to me, that means almost nothing, because you could make a reference to somebody in 19th century London looking for information on Baker Street, and then in another story you find out he was looking for Sherlock Holmes, who, as everybody knows, lived on Baker Street. I mean, it doesn't really, well, what do you know, Superman is mentioned in this story, and this one mentions the Daily Planet. Now, is that a coincidence? Well, no, but there wasn't a Superman, sadly. And so I'm not sure if that's what they mean, these unintended convergences. I mean, by the very nature of the thing, it's supposed to be insignificant little coincidings. Don't want to use the word coincidence because that begs the question, but these incidental meshes of detail that would not have been significant in their own right, but now we have to wonder, well, how they both get there, unless they're sharing a common basis of fact. But I'm not sure. I read a great refutation of Bauckham by Theodore J. Whedon, who says that that the whole enterprise of Balcom and others say, no, it's all just eyewitness stuff, is predicated on studiously ignoring all the stuff that Conselman and others have pointed out about the design of each gospel and redactional patterns of changes from one to the other, and how you can discern patterns to those changes and see what what Luke was trying to do from the way he changed Mark. Well, he says Balcom and these others just don't care about that and reject all of that as coincidence because it's just random. It doesn't mean a damn thing, because this stuff is written there simply because eyewitnesses said it, and they're not going to reject any of it. And that just seems to me like a kind of know-nothing attitude toward the text. I just want to go back to what they told me in Sunday school. And because it's not that there's no more likely option. It's like they just don't want to take seriously the real and repeated details in the text. They don't mean a darn thing. Well, you'd rather they not, but it sure seems that they do.
I'd say that answers my question. Yeah, I didn't know much about it myself. I'd only kind of come across it in passing. I think watching those inspiring philosophy videos, which should better be called inspiring apologetics. It's hardly philosophy. But yeah, I was just curious about it. Wanted to get your thoughts. I think that pretty well nails it.
If that's what he's talking about. I mean, I'm not familiar with that usage of inclusio.
Question, because I think I know a little bit of some of the stuff that they bring to the table, and I have friends, Stephen Nelson, that I'm constantly in contact with, even Camille Gregor and them. They kind of interact with these guys. Does this have anything to do with the unexplained consequences and stuff, where they're trying to argue that, like, how do you explain when it doesn't look like it was fabricated, but it just appears out of nowhere and it gives credence to the text itself, making it look like this is real. There's some real history here. It wasn't like they totally fabricated from one gospel to the next, but like you mentioned, the Daily Planet, Superman in a different text. They try to appear to find places that are unexplained consequences, and I don't know if that's what this is, but I know that, like, my opinion, one of the sillier arguments I hear Christians say is, well, there were enemies that wrote about Jesus. Look in Luke chapter 5 where, or just an example, and I don't even know if this is the right reference, but look at where one of the Pharisees calls out Jesus and says he is Beelzebub, casting out demons. That's evidence that an enemy of Jesus is, like, they use this little internal argument in the fairy tale itself to support the fairy tale. But I don't know if the inclusio thing is attached to that idea of what's called undesigned coincidences, where they try to say, look, this doesn't look like it was ripped off from Luke or John or James or whatever the book may be, but it comes across in the narrative, and it looks like it could have some authentic basis in history and reality, and not like they try to make an argument to make it seem more like eyewitness, original, and not fabricated, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I apologize for not having been a little bit more read up on it. I only have a vague awareness of it from just some of the stuff I've come across. So,
well, that's the whole idea of
so
these
I should have been more
things.
prepared, but
You're just assuming I know what I'm talking about, and in this case I don't. So it's a fair assumption and a good question.
Oh Lord. Yeah, if I come across more about that.
Yeah, I'd like to hear it.
These days I don't tend to give. I don't tend to give apologetics that. I don't tend to lend it that much more of an ear anymore. I just can't take it seriously. But
Yeah.
Thought I'd ask. But yeah, I'm glad to see you're doing well, Bob.
Oh yeah.
Are you feeling pretty well?
Yeah, I find I'm getting a little tired sometimes, but I was doing that when I was feeling awful. I feel better, much better now, and I'm not quite as dizzy or unsteady as I've been for some months. It's better some days than others, but I'm not short of breath anymore to any serious extent, and that's the thing that led me to the hospital when I was really huffing and puffing, and we finally had to call the ambulance. But I had cardioversion and heart catheterization and this various other things. I'm on blood thinners and stuff like that, and I feel pretty good now.
Okay, good. Good deal. By the way, Osiris behind you, he wasn't really raised from the dead because he didn't remain on Earth.
Oh, yeah. Oh, brother, how do they...
Just so you know, just so you're aware.
Yeah, it's like the John Lennon song aimed at Paul McCartney, "How do you sleep at night?" Saying stuff like that. Sheesh.